If you have ever thought, I don't think I can start that business. I don't think that I can go to that party. Don't think that I can pose for that photo. I don't think I can step on that stage because I'm too fat. Well, then I have a message for you. Maybe do it fat. Now, you may have heard of the notion of do it scared. It's the idea that fear doesn't vanish, that you choose to move anyway, right? Well, do it fat is exactly the same. Because when we believe that we take up too much physical space, we often try to compensate by taking up less intellectual space. A 2023 study in the UK found that 62% of women say that they've delayed a major opportunity in their life, something like a career or a relationship or public visibility, all because of how they felt about their body. And in the United States, 85% of women say that they have opted out of life activities, things like beach, applying for a job, or public speaking, all because of how they felt about their appearance. And let me tell you, it does not matter if you're sitting in this room today as a size 2 or a size 22, because looking in the mirror with eyes of criticism is a universal experience. Now, I want to be perfectly clear. I am not a psychologist. I'm not a dietitian. Whew, I am not here to give you medical advice or health diagnosis of any kind. I'm definitely not here to tell you what to do or not do with your own body. But what I am is a brand strategist. And in my business, I help mostly women step into new and expanded versions of themselves, often for the very first time. And in that, I have watched them wrestle with worthiness, ability, with the fear that they are going to be judged long before they're ever understood. And a lot of times it is not their messaging, not their offer, definitely not their logo that is holding them back. It's their shame. And for years, I have walked women through this tension professionally while privately navigating my version of it. You see, over the last year, I've lost a pretty significant amount of weight myself. And in that at the end I would feel free. Turns out I just feel mostly triggered. Because as the compliments started pouring in, they felt a little more like quiet confessions, and I felt rejuvenated. A before and an after picture. Now, don't get me wrong, I am so proud and incredibly protective of the previous versions of myself, the ones that chose to stand in the light regardless. But as I assimilate into a changing physical experience, I can tell now that it wasn't exclusively confidence, but gosh, quite a bit of disassociation. Without my armor, the light, it burns a little more than I expected, and I feel pretty exposed. But I've started to realize how so much of my self-loathing was threaded through every of my lived experience. So I set out to unpack why I held such contempt for my body home and seek to shift not only the words that I speak to myself, but deeply held beliefs that I had about my worthiness, about my physicality, and perhaps finally embrace true embodiment. So this is more than just talk, an invitation for you to completely separate your ideas and your action and your ambition from how your body looks today. And it's a refusal to make your visibility conditional. and a hard look at why that is so challenging for many of us. So, one of the very first things that we can do when we're ready to reclaim our power and dismantle our shame is to start by understanding who profits off of our self abandonment. Because shame is a business model. And as someone who crafts messaging for a living, I can certainly appreciate the value in creating a problem that didn't exist before and then positioning your product as the convenient solution, right? But there is a difference between crafting clarity and manipulation that feeds off of insecurity. The weight loss industry rakes in over $70 billion every single year, just in the United States. And the beauty industry, over $100 billion globally. Now, you start to factor in plastic surgery and fitness fads, shakes and supplements and shapewear, and gosh, you just start to see how many people are actually cashing in on our self-doubt. But children as young as just 3 years old are showing signs of body dissatisfaction. And by the time girls are 13 years old, 50% say that they are dissatisfied with their own body. Recently, 90s it girl, Jennifer Love Hewitt, walked the red carpet for the 1997, or the reboot of her 1997 horror film, I Know What You Did Last Summer, only to be met with a barrage of hate and ridicule aimed at her body. All because she had the audacity to show up in a slightly fuller figure as the 46-year-old mother of 3 when compared to her once teenage self. And really, just the latest example of hate hurled at women for, gosh, simply existing, right? But if Jennifer has to deal with that every time she steps into the spotlight, we can't be surprised when those of us who aren't celebrities choose to bow out and play it safe and hide. Because only 11% Fortune 500 CEOs are women. And we have seen that these female leaders receive significantly more media scrutiny around their appearance than their male counterparts. So when the conversation fixates on her appearance over her accomplishments, and what does that actually signal for the rest of us? But if you zoom out, you can see that this more than likely was always about control. Because if women are too focused on chasing their after, or too distracted to step on stage, to lead, to actually ask for more. Naomi Wolf in The Beauty Myth says that a culture that is fixated on female thinness is not actually a culture that is obsessed with female beauty, but with female obedience. But these ideals, I mean, they're not universal. They're not sacred. They're not even static. They're mostly cultural trends. And what better way to see how culture shifts over time than at an art museum? And whenever I personally visit a new city, it is the first thing that I look up. It's at the top of my travel itinerary. Aside from being a creative human in a creative profession, I am fascinated by art. I love and appreciate how intrinsically tied art is to the experiences of the day. We really need artists. They help to create conversation and push culture forward and say the hard part out loud. But art can also teach us so much about bodies, How physical presence is depicted throughout human history is a pathway to understanding how the female ideal shifts over time. And it's as easy to see that change as walking from one hallway of an art museum to another. This is the Venus of Willendorf. She is one of the oldest pieces of art we have ever discovered, over 25,000 years old. She is tiny, carved from limestone, and unapologetically full. She has a full belly, wide hips, and full breasts. And scholars believed that she represented fertility and abundance. So long before TikTok trends told us how to look, this was the body that represented health. Fast forward to ancient Rome. The lily Venus crouched at her bath, and even as the goddess beauty, she is seen here with a soft belly and thick thighs. And in the 1600s, Rubens painted the Three Graces, fleshy, full-bodied women with rolls and softness on full display. No hiding, no apologies, beauty, abundance, and power. And there are endless examples of bodies just like these across art museums that are put on a pedestal, literally, meticulously cared for and celebrated by thousands of visitors every single day. These bodies weren't considered the flaw, they were considered the standard, right? So what is revered in one century is then ridiculed in the next. So maybe the body that you've been taught to hate your whole life would have been considered divine 400 years ago. So if the body and the beauty standards change that many times, maybe the problem isn't with your body, maybe with the game itself. But when the goalpost keeps moving, the only way to win is simply not play. That decision, in and of itself, is a rebellion. It's an intentional choice to push back against the messages that you've been taught to consume without question. Often today we refer to this as body positivity. And like all powerful rebellions, this one didn't start comfortably or quietly. It was sparked by those who were pushed to the margins, demanding to be seen on their own terms. And the phrase body positivity itself rose to prominence mostly in the early 2010s, largely due to social media, but the ideology was shaped decades prior by Black, brown, queer, fat, and disabled people who were fighting not just for rights, but for radical change and representation. Because we know that representation is not about vanity, it's about dignity. We need to see bodies that don't look like ours, to expand our capacity for empathy, for nuance, and to broaden our understanding of what it means to be fully human. And also, we need to see bodies that do look like ours, to believe that we are worthy of love, light, and leadership exactly as we are. This isn't about who gets to be put on the front of a magazine cover or who gets the brand deal. This is about who gets to feel safe to exist. Because it is so much easier to other people when we don't see them that often. They become foreign and abstract. But we believe that our bodies are problems to be solved. Start apologizing just for existing. So if we want to see more women leading, creating, and taking up space, then we have to stop apologizing for the space that we take up. Sonia Renee Taylor said it best. The body is not an apology. It is not a crime, a sin. It is not a mistake to be erased. It is not a problem. So every time you choose visibility, you are planting a flag for someone else to find themselves. You are saying, you know, if she can take up space, then maybe I can too. So let me leave you with this. Women are taught here their hunger, not just for food. But let's be real, like also for food, for success, for ambition, for more. We're taught to suppress it. But I am tired of watching brilliant women wait to speak, wait to show up, and wait to take up space in rooms that we know that they should definitely be leading from the front. You are allowed to be hungry. Hungry for success, for softness, for ambition, for visibility, for more. I help people find their message, clarify what they stand for, and then communicate it. I can assure you that absolutely none of that is dependent on your body. How it looks today, how it used to look, or how it will look again in the future. Baby, your body is the least interesting thing about you. Your body is not your brand. Your body is not your business card. Your ideas are not dependent on your waistline and your impact measured. You don't owe the world a smaller version of you. You only owe it the truest one. So I really want this to be your permission slip today. Permission to stop waiting for your after, to stop apologizing for the body that you live in today, to stop starving your hunger in whatever form that it might take. And your reminder to whatever it might be for you, scared, tender, do it loud, do it now, and do it fat.